Welcome back, folks, to another episode of It's About Payroll. We have an extremely awesome episode today. We have a
Yeah.
guest, Sylwia. Can you pronounce your last name for us?
Korhonen.
Say it again.
Korhonen.
Korhonen.
Perfect. You got
Sylwia
it.
Korhonen.
Yep.
Perfect. And in celebration of Global Payroll Week, we're so ecstatic to have her today. I was like, can I get on? You got to get on with us Payroll Week. And she agreed to come and record with us. She's a global payroll professional powerhouse. She's a superhero. We look up to you, Sylwia. We follow you on social media, on LinkedIn, and we're keeping tabs on you. Congrats on everything you're doing right now. We love what you're doing. We saw the collabo with Michael Sheen, and I got involved, and I love it. So look, tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you got into payroll, and then we're going to get into some nitty gritty stuff about what you're a specialist at.
Sure. So I'm so happy to do this. I know, we've been thinking about it for quite a long time.
Yep.
So it's nice to, finally meet my people and speak about payroll transformations, because it's really, still in its baby phase, if you will, and not very much focused on overall globally. So when it comes to me, I would say that I've started off with payroll operations, and then, gradually kind of worked in projects and global rollouts. And right now, what I really focus on is payroll transformations.
And tell us, what does that mean? What does
Yeah.
payroll transformation mean?
So for me, payroll transformations, it's always the backbone and the beacon for payroll operations. And I think when people think of payroll transformations, probably their first thought, would be something that reaches the media. So it'd be new payroll solution implementations that go wrong. But there's so much more to it. So, my job revolves around process improvements, quality, mergers, acquisitions, service model adaptations, analytics, reporting, compliance, audit. Just thinking, am I missing something? And and payroll transformations, when it's really kind of done correctly. So aside from all of these topics, and when you tie it back with the business, with the corporate direction, when you look across the linked functions like HR, finance, total rewards, benefits, you really can create like an end-to-end impact. And again, the high level, nonetheless, of payroll transformations would be owning the payroll strategy and having that strategic planning. Although typically, I think within smaller organizations, it's fair to say that it sits with operational leaders.
Okay. And then how do you go about that? You said strategic planning. How do you go about the strategic planning for payroll?
So strategic planning, in my opinion, should always start with a well-defined, payroll governance model, basing on your scale and the fit. And what I mean by that is, understanding your global process owner, who's your regional process owner, your cluster, or your local operations, and their responsibilities, their roles. What is the operational accountability? Where does decision-making sit? How is information cascaded across? I think that's the starting point. But you do have to dive in deeper. You have to understand who manages the vendor relationships, what are the KPIs, controls, audit readiness, just to name a few. And I think what is absolutely critical is having it documented properly and having it reevaluated and reassessed with your vested stakeholders is super important.
You mentioned stakeholders. We're going to get to them too. That's a big call out there. Now, you mentioned the vendors and managing the vendors. Now, what would trigger payroll to change vendors? Because that's a big decision, right?
Yeah.
It absolutely is. And I think this is something that is not spoken of enough to the level that it should be. I think the assumption is, or what I'd love to tell you is that it's targeted, it's high population. We're reviewing areas that have high manual work, low staffing, and we're consolidating vendors, and that it's driven by new technology. And it's true, but in reality, I think organizations are way more reactive. And this is what I see across the industry. So it is mostly, I think, cost savings. It's mostly, are the security requirements being met? Do we really need to lift off payroll from the vendor because of some issues? And typically around mergers and acquisitions. So organizations seem to be, very highly risk averse. If it's not broken, don't fix it. You don't touch it.
Very true.
Yeah. So will you budget for it? will you budget for that change, or are you going to spend that money and target something that is at risk? And I think that's the question, the ongoing question across all organizations. Yeah.
Do you think that folks are, especially in the global arena where you have
Yeah.
to kind of Frankenstein this, for lack of a better term, where you have to put different modules and different solutions across the world together? Do you feel like they try to keep the payroll engine consistent, even though it's kind of like you said, it's like, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it, because they're so scared of that changing that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So absolutely, I think, when it comes down to payroll transformations and selecting the vendor, hopefully you are looking at your skill assessments, you're verifying whether, let's say, the person who's currently processing French payroll can also take on another payroll
Yeah.
of similar complexity and utilizing their language skills.
Yep.
And would it make sense then for them to hold the same vendor provider? Yeah. And I
Mm,
think lifting the business to that kind of a model where you have clusters of people that are fit for appropriate skills that can process easily payroll, step in whenever needed, creating benches, it's ideal.
that's a
But
great call out. That's a great call out. Thank you.
yeah, but just going back still, for kind of the governance, because I think it kind of comes down further to it. While governance is super important, I think the problem is what I'm seeing across organizations is that typically projects and programs are just rolled out as they are,
Hmm.
and someone has a good idea, you go for it, and you just keep it moving.
Yep.
But instead, I think it makes much more sense when you have, again, strategic planning, when you're looking at what is the current state and what it should be in 3 years' time. What is that roadmap? You define year by year, what are you going to achieve? Yeah. And I think when you look at process efficiencies, when you look at those key focus areas, you're going to have significant stakeholder support, because otherwise, if you're going to approach me and we're going to harmonize, let's say, general ledgers or random processes, who's going to be invested in that? Are you deprioritizing other tasks? Is it going to be efficient? Is it going to be maintained? And what is that value add? And I think communicating that through, again, strategic planning is important. But to do this, you really should have principles. So
Your
again,
stakeholders, is that the same?
correct.
Okay. How do you
Yeah,
manage that piece with the stakeholders? Because that's tough, right? You have to get buy-in. They have to say yes, right? And
absolutely.
then, and so do you find that, tell us about that, because it could take time, like timelines and the effort that you got to do to sell these folks, because you're selling them on something, right?
That's correct. Mhm. So the way how, I go about it is kind of understanding, again, what is the corporate direction? Are we, for instance, changing the model, the support model, understanding top down and bottom up as well? What are the needs from the local managers? What are the recurring issues? What cannot be solved for? And what I do is we have discussions around, look, do we want to have global payroll data visibility by year 3? Are we looking at minimizing key person dependencies by year 2? With those questions and those decisions, then you establish your projects and your plans, because there's various ways to achieve those targets. For instance, key person dependencies could be cross-training, creating standard operating procedures, targeted automation, or again, changing your model. But what is the right fit for your organization at that time, and understanding kind of the costs and benefits of it? And again, what is being achieved? So starting again from principles and then creating the projects and programs, instead of having the solution of, look, we're automating a general ledger, and then trying to understand what is that strategic value.
Yep.
It's reverse.
Yep. That's right. There's a term here we use. It's don't let the dog wag the tail, tail wag the dog, right?
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
and that's right. And
Yeah.
something that I think you're saying here that's really a big call out that me and Walt have been talking about for like a few weeks is being proactive,
Yeah.
execution in a
Yes.
proactive manner, not being reactive to things, because what we found and what we're reading and what we've lived is that when you're reactionary, you're
Yeah.
repairing a lot of broken things. And
Absolutely.
it's you almost need one team to repair and another team to be proactive and build for the future. So, and it's so tough to be the same team, you know, and you have to really like your mind, and and it takes an incredible mind, and I see that you have an incredible command of what needs to be done for
Yes.
this, right? And we've had some incredible guests. We had Fran on for some best practices. Like, I am just in awe of you guys, you all, with the command that you have about what you do and your talent. Just amazing. So
Yep.
thank you so much for sharing that with us and taking the time to be with us. Now, before you go though, you got to tell me those stakeholders right now.
Yeah.
You're not going to get away with that, because I know who these stakeholders are in my
Yeah.
organizations, and it's tough. Like, so give us some tips. Like, how do you do that? What can, right? Give us something.
Yeah. So the way how I approach stakeholders is I usually map them. I map them basing on influence and interest per each initiative or program. So, and in this way,
Amazing.
I understand, you know, what type of engagement and communication is appropriate. And it may vary per program or vary in time. So those with low interest and low influence, those are typically minimally impacted. It's mostly, you know, people that don't have to be significantly informed, just enough to be abreast of what's happening. However, those, for instance, with high influence and low interest would be a group that you want to keep satisfied. You want to share success stories. These would be typical senior stakeholders. Of course, then high interest and low influence would be people that you want to keep informed of the decisions that are being made and to act as your subject matter experts. And I think finally, having that group, your core group, where everybody has high influence and high interest, that's the group that you want to manage ongoingly. But when it comes to difficult stakeholders, I'll be honest with you, Walt and Brian, from my experience, the worst is trying to have everybody on board that are third parties, banks, tax offices, those that have no vested interest. And the way to approach it is formal communication, early initial engagement, and I think frequent check-ins. I want to know my escalation lines. I want to also provide enough time buffers, for all of their activities to ensure we don't go off track.
Yes.
And a big part of my job, is navigating that change externally as well and ensuring that everybody's aligned.
Outstanding.
She just dropped so much knowledge.
Yes.
That was so amazing. Like,
free game, folks. Like, if you guys are listening to this, she just career changing advice right here.
Yes.
From our payroll guru right here. Oh my goodness gracious. So let me rewind all the way back, because that's enough free game. I don't think you need to give any more. But so a little bit about yourself. Like, what got you initially into payroll? Like, where did you start? What was that? Or everybody always has that very interesting origin story for getting into payroll. What got you into payroll?
Yeah. So I was working in workforce administration.
Okay.
And I think I just saw, my colleagues working in payroll, and it was higher complexity, more difficult stakeholders. It was more analytics.
And that was attractive to you?
It was attractive to me, and I know, and that's kind of, what triggered that change. And so I tried it out, and, I've been forever since, and not looking to go anywhere anytime soon. So
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
I love it.
We say it all the time. It's a special person, group of people. I don't want to say the wrong words here. We're the special group of people that do payroll, because and now that I'm technically in the operations, HR operations side, but it's the same, the what did I say, the other side of the same coin. And it's very transactionally driven, mapping data. Somebody, what do we just come up with? Data janitor. Somebody, oh, you're a good data janitor. And I was like, oh, I love that. I'm running with that.
I love it.
So it's an amazing thing, like, to have this skill set, and you just, I mean, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And you were attracted to the chaos, basically.
Absolutely. And this is why I love payroll transformations, so give me the
Yeah.
hardest pieces, let's
Yes.
fix it, let's
Yeah.
make it easier, for
Yep.
everyone.
That's true. And that's what I think that's what I'm attracted to as well, is like the fix. Like I see, oh, I got an opportunity to help, to add value somewhere, right? And I feel like, oh wow, this is really helping us now. We've solved I love solving problems,
Mhm.
and it's like, oh man. So wow, but it does take a certain something, man. Like, Walt, what's up, man? What are you thinking, bro?
I'm blown away.
I know it.
I am super. I was already impressed with you just from what the conversations that Brian was relaying to me. I'm just blown away, Sylvia. You are amazing. For those listening to this episode, please write down the notes. Information that Sylvia dropped for you is
Yep.
priceless.
Yep.
Sylvia, it was priceless. Thank you for
Yep.
Really
sharing.
appreciate it. Of course, and happy
Yes.
to share as always.
Yeah.
Wow. So you're like on a little holiday right now. What have you been doing with your downtime?
I've been honestly having a lot of good conversations about payroll. Yeah,
Unbelievable.
I know. I love to stay abreast with all of technology, and I do enjoy demos and keeping tabs with the entire network. So definitely that's something aside from beach holidays that I do
Yes.
on my free time. Yeah.
No, I'm the same way. Like I've seen so many demos of
Yeah.
and we're not even interested in doing anything. And I'm just like, oh, and I tell these folks, like salespeople are funny because I'm like, look, I'm not interested. We're not in the market. Oh, but we can get, I was like, look, I would love to see the demo. If you want to show me the demo, I'm all for it. And they do it. I tell them up front, hey, we're not in the market, but I love watching the demos too. That's
Yeah.
great. Now, okay, so let me ask you this, technology wise, what do you see and what do you think about AI and payroll? Where do you think AI and payroll are going?
I think that's a tricky subject. And I
Okay.
think, we deal with data security.
Yep.
And it's concerning to
Yep.
me, where can this go when
Yep.
it's, not controlled? I think there's a lot of benefits for, let's say, employee self-service, automated responses
Yes.
in that sense. But process-wise and that backend piece, validations,
Yeah.
that's something that, is on my mind. But AI is one thing. One piece that I'd really enjoy seeing in payroll that I haven't seen yet is predictive analytics. I'd love to see a software that can show you a year ahead in time how many people are going to be, let's say, on maternity leave, and what is the impact on their salaries, as an example. Or let's say when we're counting redundancies or severance payments, how's that going to look in half a year time? And what is the headcount going to be? I think driving that in, for workforce planning would be great.
Yeah.
I'm writing all this down.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Oh,
Yes, I love it. I love it. And we were just talking about AI. We talk about it all the time. It's a constant conversation. I think we're going to do a whole episode on where we think, AI could take payroll. And it's scary. I've heard, I'm hearing professors and computer engineers like, hey, it is a little scary. Now they're talking about AI's intelligence level and, saying, well, it's not smarter than us yet. And that's what they're worried about, is when it becomes smarter than us, how do we control it? Where are the controls? How do we teach it properly and interact with it? So yeah, there are some fears, and I hope that we can, as a community, get around that and build some guardrails around it, because there are incredible opportunities there, like you're saying, right, as far as data validation, the back end, the mappings, looking between modules, because we have to manage a data stack, a tech stack, a technology stack in our environment to get the day done, and it would be great to have something that is checking all of those interfaces for us, right, and making sure that the checks and balances are there. So yeah, you got incredible insight.
Ryan, one more thing regarding AI. So I think everybody's so focused on looking at the future, of AI, but what's not being leveraged is robotics. So really looking at the recurring processes. Give me let's say gross figures of
Yep.
employees in January and February, have it automated, have it matched, build a sequence code, build something to match those figures, and let's have that minimum base of, let's say, 5%, yeah, to pop out the validations for us. There's a lot that still can happen without kind of looking so far in. And
that's right.
Mhm.
That's great. Again, Sylwia, thank you so much for the insight. I
always.
mean, you have an open invitation for this show. That would be great. So,
Sounds like we need to have her back for the AI episode.
and the AI episode, right? You have choices and options in the global world, and you chose us, and that means the world to
Right.
us. It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. So,
Thanks for this, really. And
no, oh gosh, more to come, and we'll let you get back. I know it's later in the day for you, so we'll let you go. And folks, Walt, any closing, anything, Sylwia, anything you want to leave us with?
Payroll operations is sacred. Yeah. And I think
Yes.
I think the most important piece is just that understanding, payroll transformations, it really should be supportive and it shouldn't be disruptive. It should be acknowledging what the capacities are and leveraging the skills that we have. And it shouldn't be invasive.
That's right. Right. You got to be open, folks. We say on the show all the time, like if you're holding things in, right? The Sylwias of the world are coming in to help payroll change and get better, not to make nothing else. There's nothing bad about it. They're gonna get you better. And folks, payroll professionals, we have to embrace this change. There's a new world, the technology. We have to embrace the technology. We have to embrace the future and how to incrementally get better, right? Greatness happens incrementally. So we have to be open for that. And the Sylwias of the world are going to help us get there. We got to partner with her and the brains that you got to keep smarter people like Sylwia around you. If you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. Get in a room with Sylwia and learn something about payroll, learn something about payroll transformation, global payroll, right? So we want to make that room, folks. If you can't get that smarter room, come in our room and we're going to have the smart people on here teaching us.
Yes.
Love it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.